Hello, everyone. Thank you for being at tonight's public hearings. We're going to start with street closing STCO for 2023, which is a portion of Fairview Road.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Ann Conlin with the Transportation Department. So this street closure tonight is a portion of Fairview Road. As you can see on this map, it is on the west side of Fairview, just south of its intersection with Bickett Boulevard. The closure is of an area that is beyond the UDO requirement to build out the street plan of Fairview Road. Staff has determined that, or ensured that the remaining right-of-way would support development of a multi-use path behind the existing curb line, and also recommends stormwater and utility easements be retained. The applicant for this closure is seeking to subdivide the land into 4 residential lots, and that subdivision is currently under review. And our review of the plan of the closure found that it aligned with the policy in the comprehensive plan about street closures. So to give you a little bit of sense of what this area is on the ground, we included a couple of photos. On the left-hand side, you can see facing at the corner of Bickett and Fairview toward Capitol Boulevard. The closure area would be that wooded area behind the sidewalk. So none of the current street footprint or sidewalk would be closed. And similarly, looking north on the right side, the closure area is the wooded area behind the sidewalk. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions of staff? Okay, there is no one signed up to speak in support or in opposition, so I'm going to open the hearing and close the hearing. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution ordering the closing and related actions with the conditions outlined.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous, thank you. And then we have the New Bern Stationary Planning Rezoning Z9222. This is a continuation from our special meeting that was held where we heard from over 30 people in favor and opposed. Some people have signed up this evening, but we notified them that we would be closing the hearing, and then we will start the deliberations on where we go next and how we move forward. So, Bynum, if you will take it from here.
Yes, ma'am. Bynum Walter, Planning and Development. As you said, this is a continuation of the public hearing that opened January 30th, so we're resuming this evening. And I just want to take a step back, remind us where we are. As you said, all allocated public comment time was utilized. We've provided you with some of the information that you requested on the 30th in the agenda materials. And then you also asked us to set up a system for you to take action in portions on the request. So we've provided a pretty extensive map series in the agenda backup, and I have some extra maps tonight that show TOD only, base districts, building heights only, parcels of special interest, also some options with or without NCOD areas. So remember, Planning Commission, Committee of the Whole, while Planning Commission recommended denial, I want to emphasize that the Committee of the Whole spent a lot of time and made a lot of recommendations to you, suggested you take out Raleigh historic landmarks, made an alternate proposal for maximum building height west of Raleigh Boulevard. They also suggested that where you apply the TOD, that you remove the NCOD for the sake of clarity if there were overlap. And they made recommendations on all the public requests that we received. And so those are included in the maps in the agenda and that I'll show tonight where they recommended approval of the request. They're not included in the maps where they recommended denial. And when they didn't make a recommendation, they're shown on the supplemental maps. We did suggest this to you on the 30th. You could also do delayed action on the DMV site as an alternative. If you don't want to delay acting, but if you want to take a vote tonight, but you could defer the effective date. And then just as a reminder, typically when you all take action on a rezoning case, so like this afternoon when you acted on Z3323, the action is effective within 5 days. On all the Z92 consistency statements, we have, and on the agenda, we have said 30 days. The size and scale of the request mean that we're going to need a little bit more time to turn around the online maps with the county. And so we didn't want to set a 5-day effective date, knowing that we could not show that in the public record within that time frame. You have lots of options in terms of how you might want to act. You can pick and choose elements of the Z92 proposal. You could act on just the TOD. You could act separately on changes to base districts and frontages. You can pick out particular sites or locations. You can act on areas of the request, right? We've divided up in our conversation all through the stationary planning process, this idea of western stations closer to downtown, the middle stations and the eastern stations outside of the Beltline. So that may be helpful to you. Again, this thing about the delayed DMV action and also that reminder about the 30-day. So what we've put in the agenda are consistency statements for you that are written flexibly enough that you can act on a portion of the request. And what you want to do is use that consistency statement along with a description of what you want to act on as shown in the maps, right? So you would move to adopt the consistency statement, included in the agenda for Z9222 and dated this, and then spell out, you would say, I'll just make up an example. East of I-440, want to adopt the whole thing, or I want to adopt it for these 3 addresses, right, whatever you choose, and we'll make sure you have those maps up in front of you for reference while you're doing that. And then if you act in pieces, you're not going to act on all of it at once. That's very clear from your previous discussion. We will assign additional labels after you act. You don't have to say if this is Z92A or Q or whatever. We'll take care of the housekeeping part for you in the back, right? You just need to talk to us about what you're trying to act on, and we'll work with the clerk's office on the ordinances. So I have this long series of maps. I don't think you want me to talk these through, but they mimic what's in the agenda materials. So we have existing zoning for reference for the whole corridor that we can pull up on the screen for you tonight. We have the TOD only for the whole, I'm just showing you eastern, but we have it for each of the pieces. We have just the base and height pieces. We have the parcels of interest maps, right? So this calls out vacant land is shown here in sort of a teal color, and then city, county, or state-owned is shown in this darker blue. The only state-owned property is in the western area, so you're not gonna, everything else is either city or county. And then we go to existing zoning. So it's repeats for middle. And then where it is present for middle stations, we've shown the TOD without the NCOD, if that is helpful to you, right? And so that's present in the middle station area. So this is TOD only for middle stations too, and then this is the without, right? Just for reference, if that's helpful to you. So how can I help you? I think you all will have discussion you want to have on your own, but what questions can I answer? How can I be helpful?
What questions do you have for Bynum? Councilmember Patton, are you getting ready to ask a question?
I'm just seeing if I have questions. Can you show us the middle one TOD switcheroni?
You thinking about Western one?
No. Maybe. Oh, in middle one, there's not any NCODs. That's okay. No, I don't think I have questions. I'm ready for comments at
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, I am going to close the hearing then, and we will start the discussion.
Excuse
Councilmember
me,
Branch?
I'll go ahead and start and give my thoughts. I definitely think we should move forward with the TOD part only tonight. Couple questions I have for us to consider is, there was conversation about historic properties and the TOD impact, removing that possibly, and also I want to get a better understanding of what can and can't be done with the state property.
So these maps reflect the Planning Commission's recommendation. So the TOD shown here for middle stations doesn't include the house on Pool Road, for example, right? That would be excluded. And then the TOD maps, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. I apologize. The TOD maps for the western section are not showing.
So the historic property.
Are not showing the overlay, so like St. Monica's
Okay.
is not included. Right?
Okay, so all state
We've
property.
removed those already, the landmarks and historic properties. And then this map also shows the removal of the state-owned property there, right? DMV is still shown here.
Okay.
Yep.
That would be my main thing, because I think there are some conflicts with the state-owned property that we will have to address. But otherwise, I think moving forward with the TOD today, removing the historic property and state property to act on at some time when it's not state property.
Councilmember Patton, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so I agree. I think we should get the TOD done tonight in whatever form is, there's the will of the council. I did take a deep dive on the maps that were provided to us over the weekend, and what worked well for my brain was to see them in a chart. So just to kind of, I provided that to everyone at the table. But I think it really did illustrate that the corridor is not homogeneous. It is not, experiences and the comments we heard are not universal along the entire length of the corridor. So it helped me to break out the 6 segments that were provided to us, and out of the 6, 3 had no removal requests, had no NCODs, and didn't have like significant public comment that I could remember, and then 3 of them did. So what I sort of laid out and welcome us to talk through is to lay the NCOD, or to lay the TOD on any parcel where there's no NCOD, where there's not a removal request, and I guess also not state-owned properties. So I think that was a lot of the conversation. I think we can agree on that, and then let's click through the list and do significant parcels, and then lay out a plan for how quickly we want to roll through these other segments. So that's kind of my thought about how we might roll forward, but open to comments.
And just to be clear, that is the eastern stations, the middle one, and then St. Aug's.
Yeah, so eastern is like east of 440 to the Walmart, and then middle one is the Wake Med area. And then the St. Aug's Oakwood is that like little narrow strip that's not contiguous. And so those were the 3 that didn't have any conflicts with their NCOD, that I couldn't recall any particular public comment, and they didn't have any removal requests from citizens. So those seem to have like a different character than the neighborhoods that did have significant public commentary. So I think we can kind of approach those differently, but
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I would also say I would like to get the TOD mapped tonight. I think we should do the whole corridor, but remove the historic properties, not map it where there's an existing NCOD right now. That seems to be a lot of sort of the heartburn in these historic neighborhoods.
So Oakwood then, Idlewild, those.
Anywhere there's an NCOD, don't map the TOD right now. I also feel like those areas are not going to redevelop and change, at least not at this time. The areas that we really need to make sure that we're focusing on are the vacant properties and the commercial properties and places that are ripe for redevelopment, and we need to make sure that we get that piece right. So the first step of mapping the TOD along the whole corridor, taking out the NCOD properties, taking out the historic properties, that's going to prevent non-transit oriented stuff from being built. That's the base there. And we're already losing opportunities along this corridor with drive-throughs and gas stations under construction. So we get that mapped. And then I think that there are a couple of key pieces that I think we need to look at the rezoning part. Those are city-owned. The one caveat I will say for the NCOD is the 600 Newbern site. It's presently vacant. It has an temporary Explorer school on it. I would like to remove the NCOD there and map the TOD. It is not in the neighborhood. It's across the street. There is a developer that owns the lot, and they are ready to build affordable housing in a grocery store. They cannot do it with the NCOD on it, and they do need the assistance of the base zoning change. But let's do the TOD first. So my motion would be, or my second would be, map the TOD on the corridor, take out the historic properties, don't map it over NCOD sites, but put it on the 600 Newbern site.
Second,
Okay,
unless there's additional comments.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, we still have to read the consistency statement. So I say I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated March 5th, 2024, containing the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda under recommended action on placing the TOD, everything he said.
No historic sites, no NCOD, except remove the NCOD from 600 Newbern. Second.
And no state property.
And no state properties.
property.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, and
Okay,
just,
anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous.
I do just want to clarify, are we going to map it on where there's a public request for removal? Are we going to map it there?
And don't include the public request for removal. That was a clarification. Do we need to vote
Do we
again?
need to vote again?
We are good.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
All right,
Check.
and then
One.
there was discussion about the two city-owned properties where Zax's and Duplex Village, and also you mentioned
600
this-
Newbern.
600 Newbern. We cannot move forward with issuing RFPs or whatnot on city-owned land until we rezone that. And those are two golden opportunities just waiting. And that certainly complements the TOD. That's why we purchased this property to begin with. So I would recommend that we look at rezoning those as well as the 600 block. I wish we could do the DMV site while we're at it, because that would send a strong message about how serious we are about that development, but we have to defer that till a later date until we own the property.
So maybe for clarity, we take those one parcel at a time, and maybe Bynum, you show us like Duplex Village and what the proposed zoning is, and we vote on that, and just keep it nice and clear.
We'll have to read the consistency statement
For each one.
for each time.
I'd like to
Okay.
start with the 600 Newbern, if that's okay.
Sure.
Why don't we do each, let's wait, let's get consensus on one, consensus on the other, consensus on the third, read one consistency statement and move forward.
Sure.
Councilor Harrison.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention or check in perhaps with Imola Sutton, if you're here. I know there were some other affordable housing properties on the corridor, and I'm just checking. I don't know if those needed to be considered as well. I think some of them are owned by DHIC or CASA, but perhaps those already have the, rezonings that they need. I do want to make sure we don't miss any of the other affordable housing sites. 'Cause I've got 11 on my list.
I know DHIC is currently building senior housing on the corridor right next to Duplex Village, so I don't know if that's that. And then CASA had their rezoning a while ago. I don't know if they have any
Yeah.
additional.
The DHIC property is probably almost, it's basically done.
Yes.
It's up. I'm thinking if anything like that we're missing, we still have to deal with properties along the corridor, so we can make sure if we don't get it tonight, we get it as we move along in the conversation in each section.
Especially after we look at each section. One thing I did want to bring up, Councilor Harrison had mentioned this to me, and I think it would be an interesting idea, doing some type of tour. Maybe we do a tour, like outside a work session, but whoever would want to do that, we go and we look at the different station areas, like Eastern, Middle, whatnot, so everybody can kind of see what's there. And, I suggested that for our retreat, but it was one of those things where we couldn't do everything. But I think it would be really helpful, like, one of the things you said is, I want to see it. And so if we could ask staff, we'll talk about that after we get through everything else. But maybe we also open up to some members of the public if they would like to join. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think we're going to have many more meetings on the rezonings on these couple hundred parcels. I think for tonight, pardon?
744.
That's right. I think for tonight, if we could get 600 New Bern, because there's a developer ready to do affordable housing and grocery store there, and there's a great need in that area for a grocery store. And then the 2 bigger city-owned sites that are not presently state-owned, then I think to Councilmember Harrison's point on some of these other parcels that maybe they'll rise to the top next. But I do think for tonight we should handle these 3. And then I guess if we have stamina to do more this evening, we can keep going. But I want to make sure that we're being very intentional with a lot of them. But these 3, I think, have the highest priority, at least for me. And so I'd like to start with 600 New Bern.
Let me just do a temperature check here. Is there consensus to move forward on those 3 properties?
Yes.
Yeah, it might be good to hear what we're going to, but.
I just want to see where the consensus is. It appears to be there. So if, Bynum, you could go back and then give us some instructions when you're done with all this on what we need to do. I guess there's a consistency statement already there that you can use. That's right. But if you will take this
Yes,
on.
ma'am. So this is the New Bern site that that has been referenced. That seems like where you want to start the conversation. So what's proposed in Z92 here is NX5. You've just applied the overlay, right? And so the question is, in front of you, do you want to apply this zoning, the NX5, and what's in place here now is NX3 with a green frontage. Remember, you've put the overlay on, and that requires the urban limited frontage style of development. So you're, that's set, right? Like the frontage matter is taken care of, which is why the recommended zoning here is just the NX5. And then I've heard some conversation from you about the possibility of removing the NCOD here.
We just did. When we mapped the TOD, that was in our
When we did the
motion,
TOD,
removing the
we removed
NCOD from this parcel. That was in the first motion we did.
Okay. I thought what you were saying was you were taking the NCOD areas out of the rezoning, in which case you have not.
The motion was to not apply the TOD to any existing NCOD except 600 New Bern, apply the TOD and remove the NCOD from the
So
property.
that's done. So the question here is, do you want to take action on this base district of NX5 or
Yes.
something different than NX3?
And I'm
which
ready
is
to
what's
make
there
that motion
currently?
now if there's no other discussion.
So within X5, you also have the bonus.
Yes, ma'am, because the overlay's in place there.
Of up to 7 with the affordable housing component.
8.
8.
Yes.
Okay.
With affordability and the additional
affordability.
stories. Yes, sir.
I'm ready to go on that. All right, so
Go.
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated March 5th, 2024, containing the agenda materials and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action for 600 New Bern for the staff recommended rezoning of the base district. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous, thank you.
You want to do Zach's next?
Village or Zach's?
Right, so here is,
These can be done together, they're so close.
here is Zach's, right? And so what's there now is a little bit of R10 on one parcel, some RX3 on some existing parcels, and then CX3 and NX3 with urban limited frontage on the CX and NX. And what the proposal there is for 5-story height across all various base districts and no frontages because you've just applied the overlay there, which requires the urban limited frontage.
And this may be for housing in neighborhoods, is there going to be realignment of that street that will require, and I guess if it is and it changes, whatever that change is, whatever the new zoning is, that's what it will still be? So it's a two-part question.
You're asking about if this right-of-way were to be closed or
Correct.
reconfigured, what would happen? So when we adopt zoning, the map shows the zoning goes to the center line of right-of-way.
Okay.
So we zone right-of-way, and so if it closes, we know how to assign the district based on what's adjacent.
And if they close it but want to redo the street and it cuts through, I guess that'd be a subdivision? Do you understand what I'm asking? Right now, it's a diagonal street. If they want to make it parallel to New Bern, it's going to cut through CX and NX and RX.
You're talking about if the street is parallel to New Bern.
Correct,
But south of Boyer.
correct,
So if it did this, is that what you're?
Correct.
Roughly? Just the right-of-way would be dedicated as part of subdivision, right? Oh, here's Ira. He wants to.
So I know, sorry, I've talked, this is a little premature for housing in neighborhoods, but I
Okay.
have discussed this with our real estate division and a little bit with transportation. It is entirely plausible that Boyer Street goes like this.
Okay.
It's hard to do, be precise, but straight across, right? To realign this weird hairpin, that's a legacy there. If Boyer Street were the same width as it already is, it should fit within what we're proposing. So the city owns this parcel and also this big one.
okay.
That's
So-
not proposed to be rezoned. So I don't think that would be an issue.
Perfect. Yeah, so Boyer would go across and then those two streets would dead end.
So effectively, we would get like a squared off site
Got you.
south of Boyer Street if that were to happen. So this would accommodate that
Okay, thank you.
without a zoning conflict.
Thank you.
Okay. So the recommended zoning on this site would also be the 5 stories?
Yes, ma'am. So the portion north of the right-of-way here is RX5. So it's keeping the existing base district. And then south of that, again, keeping the base district, but going to 5 stories on all the parcels covered here.
Okay. Do we have any questions of staff? Okay, do we have a motion?
Great, sure. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated March 5th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action, rezoning the Zach's parcels to the staff recommendation presented.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous, thank you. Next, we have Duplex Village.
So Duplex Village is shown here. So the existing, let's look at the existing zoning first, the whole site. So it's south of New Bern, between New Bern and Hawkins, right? And that kind of triangular wedge shape there. There are a number of parcels there. Some are owned by the city or some are not. And the proposal it's all R10 now, and the proposal was for the portion, this is not, so this has the green plus frontage suggested, which would override the urban limited as adopted in the overlay, which requires extra planting. And so the way the code is written, if there's another frontage applied, then those requirements kick in, right? The additional restriction, yes.
Right, but I think that's for the other side of New Bern Avenue.
So New Bern is right here,
Correct. So
right? And we're showing
Okay, so it's
RX5 on the
RX5
northernmost
GP.
portion of the duplex village site. Remember, there was a lot of input from the neighborhood in this corridor about wanting more trees adjacent to the BRT corridor. So that white line, this little white line here, is just indicating the green plus frontage would apply to the front part of the site, the front being the New Bern front of the site, and that the area south of there that relates more strongly to Hawkins and the side street there would not have the green plus frontage applied, but would be subject to the urban limited as adopted in the overlay.
Works for me.
Okay?
This one? Okay. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated March 5th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action, adopting the zoning for duplex village as presented here by staff.
You're on a roll. Here we go.
Love a
Okay.
chart.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous as well. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to ask this, and I don't know the answer, which is sometimes dangerous. We've picked these 3 specific lots. Are there any other empty lots sitting there on, in the district that would make sense to address?
So I can show you in the eastern area, these teal or green parcels are currently vacant. And so if you wanted to take action on them, that's something that you could do. And I have a map like this for each of the sections of the corridor. So this is eastern, this is outside the belt line. So here's Tower Shopping Center, this is New Bern, and this is New Hope, just to kind of give you and this is the Taylor's site, right? The nursery is there, if that helps with wayfinding.
Does this apply to Tower Shopping Center, or is that separate?
Tower's not vacant. It's in the rezoning request.
I've been dreaming about that area being redeveloped for
Right. So zoning at
years.
Tower right now is a combination of CX3 and IX3. You've applied the overlay, and then the base and height recommendation in this area was a combination of IX7 and CX7. Generally keeping the base district true.
Councilmember Harrison and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm not prepared to take any more action. I think if we're going to focus on any other areas or certain kinds of sites, I just would want to know so that I can prepare and.
You want to see them?
Yeah, I really want to get out there. So if we could have that time, and I know Councilmember Patton has this beautiful schedule here, and I don't know if we want to actually put that into place, like set up some dates. We're going to cover, Eastern, then we're going to cover Middle One, then we're going to cover St. Aug's. Is it today
Yeah, I
to
don't
figure
wanna-
those dates out?
I don't want to be overly prescriptive. I think I meant it to illustrate, Bynum said they'll take care of the housekeeping, so I want to leave room for that to happen. I think that if we can stick with what's illustrated, that might resonate with most people. So what we have here is a gap in the month of April to allow people time to visit the site or get their staff questions answered one-on-one, and then flow through the chunks that are easy. And then what I have illustrated here is that right after we come back from the holidays, we would check in. We would do like a temperature check. Sorry, not the holidays, like summer break.
Yeah.
But like we would check in on the temperature of the 3 remaining segments. And at that time, we need to like action. Like if there's political will to move forward, we need to set the dates and do that. Or if there's not political will to move forward, at that time, we need to just be honest with ourselves and close the books. So that's kind of, so give everyone a month to visit the sites, flow through the easy ones, and then right after summer break, we do a temperature check. That's kind of what
I would like to see if we could move middle 2 up into June 18th, and then we'll check in beforehand, and then we'll do the 2 tough ones, which is Western 1 and 2.
Yeah, I can live with that. I think middle 2 had some public commentary, but it may have been mostly related to the conflict between NCODs and the TOD. So if we could just maybe reopen some public hearing for that, just some amount of time, just to confirm that, like make sure that the public feedback we get confirms that the action we've just taken resolves.
Well, maybe that's a work session kind of thing where people can talk, or not. We can work that out, though.
Yeah.
And I think, too, as I mentioned earlier, if we did a bus tour, like we've done this before where the public could also come on with us, and it doesn't have to be a work session. It could be a specially scheduled meeting if staff were amenable to that. I don't know what our work session schedule is like, and I don't want to bump other things for this. So maybe we look at how we could do a tour, even if it's like a Saturday morning, if staff were amenable to that. But I know people do want to see it, and I'm a visual learner, so I totally appreciate that. So I think that could be helpful.
So currently, we've tried to kind of figure out how we can plug and play in one of our already scheduled work session, just for ease, and it's already on people's calendars, and we don't have to do a special notification.
What
and
are
a
you
special
looking
meeting. Give us until the end of the week. We're working with transportation to figure out the logistics, so within the next 30 days.
Okay.
So maybe we leave it open-ended that we'll just hear the 4 sections, Eastern, St. Aug's, Middle 1, and Middle 2, before summer break, and we'll leave it to y'all to
And then after
to
summer
tighten the
break,
screws on that. And after summer break, we'll do Western 1 and Western 2.
Western 1 and 2. I'd just like to get some staff feedback. Would that work for you?
Seems great.
Okay. Councilmember Branch?
Yeah, I'm fine with that and having that conversation. I've driven this road so many times. If we could also have staff look at areas, I'm sure you've all have had conversation where someone is thinking about a redevelopment or doing something. Tower, I know for sure, is thinking about doing some redevelopment once they get in under control some of the properties and things of that nature. I think whatever information you may have that you can share as we're going through these sections, it'll be beneficial to the entire council. I mean, case in point, the property we just did on 600 New Bern Avenue is because of information that council members were aware of. So I think that'll be very beneficial in moving forward. And just making sure that we give those that have questions or concerns, please contact us, email us, let us know as we move forward.
I would just like to add one more thing to the DMV site. We have to own that before we can map it and rezone it. The second we own that, you need to bring that back to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Heard. That's going to be big.
I just want to add 2 more things. First, I want to thank Councilmember Patton so much for this chart and helping us get organized. I think the only reason we were able to move forward these really big, impactful pieces we took today is because of your leadership and organization, so thank you very much. I also want to thank staff. You know, I told Pat, I was like, this is going to be an easier lift now that Councilmember Patton has done all this work. I understand it was a lot of work for y'all. The other one piece that I want to flag is to Councilmember Harrison's point. I agree with everything we just said about the schedule. Could we maybe on April 2nd, though, have the remaining affordable housing sites come back to us? There was a list that I know I received, and Councilmember Harrison received. We've done a couple of them already, but there are some others on here. So maybe not interrupting this other schedule we did, but if we could just get those specific owned by nonprofit providers to provide affordable housing, we can get them back on April 2nd, we could do them too, and then that leaves the rest of the schedule for us to work through, as Councilmember Patton said.
I think
Yes,
that would be
we can.
great. Okay, so we are off. Not running, but maybe jogging a little. I want to reiterate too, really appreciate Councilmember Patton's working with us and getting this done in your leadership. So, and organizational skills. That was very helpful. And just breaking it down into bite-sized pieces so we can do this methodically, but with a great deal of thought. And so, and I want to thank everybody who came out to our public meeting, people who spoke with and shared their concerns, but also people who spoke in support. It really meant a lot and really helped inform us. So want to say thanks to all of you, and thank you again for being here tonight. I think we have gone as far as we can go, but staff, if you will take that schedule and kind of work that out, bring back the affordable housing sites on April 2nd, and then, again, keep in mind DMV.
As soon as possible.
And get that back to us as soon as possible. So does anybody have anything else? Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.